The Su-57 is a failure. Russia's so-called stealth fighter is a joke. It can't compete with the F-22 or F-35. You've heard these takes 1,000 times. Aviation enthusiasts, defense analysts, even some military experts love to trash Russia's Su-57 Falon. They point to its visible rivets, its allegedly poor stealth characteristics, its supposed lack of advanced avionics. The internet is filled with articles declaring it inferior to Western fifth-generation fighters. But here's the thing. What if everyone's been looking at this aircraft completely wrong? What if the features that Western analysts criticize aren't design flaws at all, but deliberate choices based on a completely different combat philosophy? Today, we're going to flip the script on the Su-57. We're going to explore why this supposedly bad design might actually be genius, and why Russia built exactly the fighter they needed, not the fighter the West thinks they should have built. Let's dive in. First, let's address the elephant in the room: stealth. Western critics love to point out that the Su-57 isn't as stealthy as the F-22 or F-35. They're right, it isn't. But here's the question nobody asks: does it need to be? The United States invested everything into stealth because of their combat doctrine. America fights wars thousands of miles from home, often against nations with sophisticated air defense networks. For the US, stealth is essential because they need to penetrate deep into enemy territory on day one of a conflict. Russia's situation is completely different. They're designing fighters primarily for defensive operations near their own borders, where they have extensive ground-based radar networks, electronic warfare systems, and surface-to-air missile coverage. In this environment, absolute stealth becomes less critical. The Su-57 has what engineers call reduced radar cross-section, not true stealth. From the front, it's stealthy enough to be problematic for enemy radars. From other angles, not so much. Those visible rivets and panel gaps that everyone mocks, they increase the radar signature, yes, but they also make the aircraft dramatically easier and cheaper to maintain. Here's the genius part. Russia made a calculated trade-off. They sacrificed some stealth for increased agility, easier maintenance, and lower costs. When you're operating close to home with extensive support infrastructure, this trade-off makes perfect sense. And let's be honest, in a real conflict between near-peer adversaries, true stealth is becoming questionable anyway. Modern radar systems, especially those operating in lower frequencies, are getting better at detecting even the F-22 and F-35. The era of invisible aircraft might be shorter than we think. Now let's talk about what the Su-57 does better than any Western fighter: Superman durability. This aircraft can perform the Pugachev's Cobra, the Kulbit flat spins and maneuvers that would rip the wings off an F-22. It has 3D thrust vectoring on both engines, meaning it can point its engine nozzles in virtually any direction. The Su-57 can essentially point its nose wherever the pilot wants, regardless of which direction the aircraft is actually flying. Western analysts often dismiss this as airshow tricks with no combat value. But that's missing the point entirely. In beyond visual range combat, sure, stealth and sensors matter more than maneuverability. But what happens when stealth fails? What happens when electronic warfare makes your long-range missiles unreliable? What happens in a scenario where geographical constraints force close-quarters combat? The Su-57's design assumes that modern air combat won't always happen at 100 kilometers with perfect sensor fusion and unlimited missile supplies. Russian doctrine prepares for messy, close-range fights where maneuverability becomes critical again. Consider this scenario. You're a Su-57 pilot, and an F-35 has locked onto you with an AIM-120. You use your incredible maneuverability combined with electronic countermeasures to defeat the missile. Now that F-35 has given away its position, you can turn your aircraft in ways the F-35 pilot can only dream of, point your nose directly at them regardless of your flight path, and take a shot with an infrared missile that doesn't care about radar stealth. The Su-57's designers understood something fundamental in real combat, especially in conflicts near Russian territory. Fights might not be clean, long-range affairs. They build an aircraft that can win when things get chaotic. Let's talk sensors. The F-35 is famous for its sensor fusion, combining data from multiple sources into one coherent picture. The Su-57 takes a different approach, and it's fascinating. The Su-57 has 6 different radar systems. 6, not one integrated system with sensor fusion, but multiple independent radars working in different frequencies. There are L-band radars in the leading edge extensions, X-band radar in the nose, and side-looking radars for increased situational awareness. Western critics see this as primitive, a sign that Russia couldn't match American sensor fusion technology. But there's another way to look at it: redundancy and versatility. Each radar operates on different frequencies, making the aircraft incredibly difficult to jam completely. If an enemy uses electronic warfare to disrupt one frequency, the other radars keep working in a high-intensity electronic warfare environment, which is exactly what a conflict with NATO would involve. This redundancy is invaluable. Moreover, those L-band radars in the wings aren't just backups. L-band radar operates at lower frequencies that are actually better at detecting stealth aircraft. The F-22 and F-35 are optimized to defeat X-band radar, which is what most fire control systems use. But L-band? That's a different story. The Su-57 might be able to detect stealth fighters that can't see it on their own sensors. There's also a philosophical difference here. American fighters rely heavily on data links and networked warfare. The Su-57 is designed to operate more independently with its own comprehensive sensor suite that doesn't depend as much on external data. In a conflict where communication networks might be compromised, this independence is a significant advantage. Remember those visible rivets and panel gaps we talked about? Let's dig deeper into why that might be genius, not laziness. The F-22 and F-35 require climate-controlled hangars and specialized facilities for maintenance. Their radar-absorbent coatings are delicate and degrade quickly, requiring constant reapplication. After every flight in the rain, the F-22 needs hours of maintenance to restore its stealth coating. The F-35 has similar issues. The F-22's mission-capable rate, meaning the percentage of aircraft ready to fly at any given time, hovers around 50%. Think about that. The most advanced fighter jet in the world can only get half its fleet airborne when needed. The F-35 has struggled with similar readiness issues. The Su-57, by contrast, is designed to operate from rough airfields with minimal ground support. Its maintenance requirements are far less demanding. Those gaps and rivets that reduce stealth also mean panels can be removed and replaced quickly without specialized facilities. The aircraft doesn't need pristine hangars to maintain its combat effectiveness. For Russia, which has thousands of miles of border to defend and hundreds of airfields of varying quality, this is crucial. They need fighters that can operate from anywhere, be maintained by regular technicians without years of specialized training, and get back in the air quickly. Is a Su-57 at a remote airfield in Siberia less stealthy than an F-22? Yes, but which aircraft is actually operational and ready to fight? There's your answer about which design is actually more practical for Russia's needs. The Su-57's weapons loadout reveals another deliberate design choice that Western analysts often misunderstand. The internal weapons bays are smaller than those on the F-22, limiting the size of missiles it can carry internally while maintaining stealth. Critics point to this as a flaw, but the Su-57 can also carry weapons on external hardpoints, sacrificing stealth for massive firepower when needed. This dual capability is intentional. In a defensive scenario over Russian territory, the Su-57 doesn't need to maintain stealth throughout the entire mission. It can fly with external weapons, using its own air defenses and electronic warfare systems for protection, carrying far more missiles than an F-22 or F-35 could dream of. The aircraft is designed around versatility. In a penetrating strike mission where stealth is critical, it uses internal bays. In a defensive counter-air mission over friendly territory, it loads up with external weapons and becomes a missile truck with incredible maneuverability. Russia's new long-range air-to-air missiles, like the R-37M with a range exceeding 200 kilometers, change the calculus even further. The Su-57 can carry these externally, operate behind the front lines protected by ground-based defenses, and engage enemy aircraft from extreme ranges. It doesn't need to sneak close when it can shoot from hundreds of kilometers away. This flexibility is something Western fighters largely gave up in pursuit of maximum stealth. The F-22 and F-35 are optimized for one mission profile. The Su-57 is designed to adapt. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Russia has only produced a handful of Su-57s compared to hundreds of F-35s. Doesn't this prove the design is a failure? Not quite. Russia's limited production reflects economic reality, not design flaws. The Soviet Union collapsed. Russia's economy struggled for decades, and their defense budget is a fraction of America's. They literally cannot afford to build hundreds of fifth-generation fighters. But here's the genius. They designed a fighter they could actually afford to operate. Every design choice we've discussed, from reduced stealth to simpler maintenance to multi-role capability, reduces operational costs. Moreover, Russia never intended the Su-57 to replace their entire fighter fleet. Their doctrine uses it alongside upgraded Su-35s, Su-30s, and MiG-31s. The Su-57 acts as a force multiplier, a quarterback that coordinates with cheaper legacy aircraft to create an integrated defense network. Compare this to America's approach with the F-35, which was supposed to replace everything and has cost over $1 trillion in a program plagued with problems and delays. Russia looked at their budget, their strategic needs, and their operational environment and designed accordingly. They built a small number of highly capable aircraft optimized for their specific situation rather than trying to build a one-size-fits-all wonder weapon they couldn't afford. Unlike the F-22 and F-35, which have seen limited action against low-capability adversaries, the Su-57 has been tested in Syria against a complex, real-world environment with actual air defenses and potential threats. Russia deployed Su-57s to Syria multiple times, not for airshow demonstrations but for actual combat evaluation. They tested the aircraft against the same air defense systems they expect to face in a real conflict, gathered real-world data on radar performance, and refined their tactics based on actual operational experience. The aircraft performed sensor-gathering missions in an environment with Israeli F-35s occasionally operating nearby, American aircraft in the region, and various sophisticated air defense systems active. This is real-world testing that goes far beyond what happens at controlled test ranges. Did the Su-57 prove it could dominate the F-22 in Syria? No, but it proved it could operate in a complex, contested environment, gather intelligence, perform its missions, and return safely. For Russia, that's exactly what they needed to validate. So, is the Su-57's design actually genius? That depends on what you're measuring. If you're comparing it directly to the F-22 or F-35 using Western metrics, it falls short in stealth and sensor fusion. But if you evaluate it based on what Russia actually needs, what they can afford to operate, and how they plan to fight, the design makes tremendous sense. The Su-57 isn't a failed attempt to copy Western fighters. It's a fundamentally different approach to air combat based on different strategic circumstances, different operational environments, and different economic realities. It prioritizes maneuverability over stealth, versatility over specialization, maintainability over perfection, and operational flexibility over single-mission optimization. The real genius isn't in any single feature, it's in the overall philosophy. Build what you need, not what your adversary builds. Design for your reality, not someone else's doctrine. Is it better than the F-22 or F-35? Wrong question. The right question is it the right aircraft for Russia's needs? And the answer to that might surprise you. What do you think? Is the Su-57 underrated, or are the critics right? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this different perspective, hit that like button and subscribe for more military aviation analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.